Joining us now is Mike Chernoff, who is the assistant general manager of the Cleveland Indians. Mike, good to have you back on the show. Happy holidays to you and your family.
Thanks, Bruce. Same to you.
I said I started the show by telling the fans this is a no-lose deal for the Indians. I like it because we weren't going to keep Choo anyway. I, quite frankly, was very disappointed in him last year. I was expecting a lot more. We get a potential ace in Bauer, two solid relievers, hard-throwing kids, and obviously an everyday player in Stubbs.
Yeah, I think we feel just as excited as you are, and I'm glad to hear that you're excited about it. To have a chance to impact the team in both the short and long term from a trade from a player like Choo, where we know it's just really a one-year fit, was really something we felt we couldn't pass up on.
How much did you guys discuss before you pulled the trigger about the potential of all these strikeouts in the lineup with the signing of Reynolds and now with Stubbs?
It's funny. It's not. We're certainly not targeting strikeouts. As this deal came together, Stubbs was a guy who, once Cincinnati acquired Choo, was sort of out of the picture for them for this year. So, he turned into a good player to get back in this return. Certainly a player we're very excited about getting because of some of the tools that he does have. I mean, he is a Gold Glove caliber defender, a really great runner, and a superb athlete. So I think he adds a lot beyond the strikeouts. And I think, look, we're going to have to live with that. That's part of who he is as a player, and I think it's part of the reason that he has the power that he has. But it's not something we targeted or have, looked to try to acquire in any way.
See, I can live with the case of Reynolds. He's a bona fide slugger, so every slugger strikes out. In the case of Stubbs, I can live with his high strikeout to walk ratio a lot more if he improves his on-base percentage because, Mike, I love the fact this guy can steal 30 to 40 bases.
Yeah, he has 30-30 potential. I mean, he has the power to hit 30 home runs. He's already hit over 20 in the big leagues. And so if he can get back to enough contact to hit into that power and enough contact to get on base enough, regardless of what the strikeout totals are, he will be a very valuable player. At the very least, with his defense and speed on the bases, he's already providing a base level of value.
I want to talk about his defense in a minute. Could he potentially, now with Choo gone, we have to look at the three-hole, and this is Francona's call, I realize, but let's just have some fun, speculating on this. Brantley, to me, has proven that he is a patient major league hitter who can take pitchers deep into the count and then hit in the clutch and thus produce runs with RBIs. He could be a nice fit for three if indeed Stubbs could handle the leadoff spot with Kipnis too. What do you think?
We're looking to put together the options for Tito. I think you're right. I think we saw last year Brantley hitting a little bit deeper in the order, not hitting leadoff because of that ability to drive in runs. It's a special quality that he has with his contact ability, his patience, and he doesn't get nervous or anxious in the clutch. So I think he has that ability, and we'll see how things shake out, and that's ultimately something that Terry will have to decide on.
Now, here's the other thing. Brantley did an excellent job defensively in center field. But Stubbs, as you say, is a Golden Glove type center fielder, and I believe that's all he's played, where we already know Brantley can play an excellent left field. How do you envision that? And I also would say this for Brantley. If Francona goes to Brantley and says, listen, we'd like to use Stubbs in center, would you go back to left? I think Brantley's such a mature, his old man was a major leaguer. I mean, he's such a mature kid. I can't imagine him getting peeved off. Mike, what do you think?
It's something that I think we'll have to see how it plays out. I think you're right. Michael really stepped into that role as everyday center fielder and went off and running with it. So this was by no means us feeling like he couldn't handle that position. We felt like not only did he handle it, but he continued to improve to become a really good center fielder last year. So it's a good problem to have two very, very strong athletes and very strong defenders that can both play center field. You always want that kind of depth. I mean, you look at the outfield that the Angels had last year, where Mike Trout, Peter Borges, Vernon Wells, Torrey Hunter, all those guys are center fielders. That's a pretty good problem to have, and you figure out where they'll play and expect very good defense out of those guys wherever they are. So
yeah.
I think we're hoping for that problem, and ultimately it'll shake out on where guys play as we get into spring training.
And we know that 2/3 of our outfield we're going to have excellent defense. Talk about these relief pitchers. Albers, of course, goes back with Francona to the Boston. They both throw 96, 97, I understand.
Yeah, both have above-average fastballs, power arm righties. Matt Albers has a little bit more experience. Tito had him in Boston, really liked him. Had a great year last year with both Arizona and Boston before he was traded. And he's a guy that can slot right in, really good against right-handers, can pitch in the middle of the bullpen and potentially even a little bit deeper to get a key out against a righty. Shaw is a guy that's a little bit younger. He was a 2008 draft, and his bread and butter pitch is the cutter. He can run it up to 95, 96 with his fastball, but his bread and butter is the cutter. And he's a guy who's got a little bit of upside to pitch a little bit later in the pen.
Yeah, I heard he uses that cutter 90 to 95% of the time, which is his money pitch. Now let's talk about Bauer. It sounds to me he's got a little bit of lincecum in him. This odd pregame routine. Is that an exaggeration? He throws long toss 400 feet, Mike?
If it turns into Tim Lincecum, I think we'll be very happy with that.
I'd say. And, I guess Towers, was very complimentary after the deal. Diplomacy is what you front office guys are known for. But it is coming out of the Phoenix area that they were concerned that. And explain to me, what is this running up? He runs up on the mound in his warm-up with a head start? Because most major league pitchers or professional pitchers will start when they approach the mound from the front bottom portion of the mound and work their way back to the rubber.
We know Trevor very well, actually. It's a real credit to some of our scouts on the West Coast, in particular Paul Kogan, our cross-checker out there, getting to know him during the draft. He was a guy that was in consideration for a pick. I mean, he ended up going before we took Lindor. But we got to know him really well. We did some interviews with him. We really got to know the kid, his routines. They're unconventional, no doubt about it. But he credits his success so far in getting to where he is. He credits his routines, and some of those are unconventional to get him to this point. So it's a guy with 3 above-average pitches, a great feel for the game, a great feel for what makes him succeed. And so whether they're unconventional or not, we want him to succeed and feel like we can work within the environment or create the environment that we think he'll succeed in.
Now, I haven't seen him, but I've heard he has a nasty curveball. How nasty? Because I've always felt that's the lost art pitch, Mike. Look at. To me, Verlander's best pitch is his curveball.
Yeah, I mean, we feel it grades out. Our scouts have it on the 2 to 8 scale as potentially a 7. So it is, a way above average pitch. It's a hammer curveball. He's got a plus changeup, and obviously with his fastball velocity, a way above average fastball as well. Do you guys? I know you hope. But do you expect him to make our rotation going? Are you expecting him to make the rotation going down to camp? We don't set those expectations. It's clear he has development left. He was drafted in 2011, signed midway through the season, and so he's had a year and a half in pro ball and something like 175 innings or so total in pro ball. So this is a guy that has development left, no doubt about it. Whether that happens in AAA or the big leagues, either one is fine, and we'll see how it plays out in spring training. I think he there's no doubt in our minds he can make an impact in our major league rotation this year. We just we need him to feel comfortable. We need to get him, comfortable with the organization to a point where that development takes place at the right level for him right now. We still have a void in right field, no matter what we do with Stubbs and Brantley, who play center and who plays left. I know you can't get into specifics, but are we still very active in pursuing these available guys, and we all know who they are? We absolutely are. We continue to try to find good free agent signings, continue to scour the trade market. I mean, we've been working very hard. I know it was a tough feeling for everyone during winter meetings as we felt like we were working and kind of spinning those wheels and came out with nothing. And then obviously over the next week, a couple of things have kind of come to fruition. So that work, it's a tireless effort that, with one final phone call can change at any time. So we're certainly looking to add talent. We know that the outfield is one place, and we still want to find more pitching depth.
Certainly, the original reports down in Nashville were that we were talking as part of a 4-team deal with Arizona, and as Drubel's name was in it on our end. That becomes a lot more complicated when you have multiple teams. This was a 3-team deal. I take it this is what resulted from what the groundwork was laid at Nashville?
Yes, the groundwork was definitely laid in Nashville for this, and really over the months leading up to that. It's a long process to figure out exactly what other teams need, see where you have fits. It's hard enough to do a trade with just one team. To try to line it up 3 ways, as we did in this one, is even more difficult. So it takes a lot of time to work through that and find the right fits. But yeah, it's not easy to try to get 2 separate GMs and your own team on the same page on something.
Now, if we don't get anything done between now and the Christmas break, it doesn't mean that we can't cut some deals in January before we go to camp. And I think a lot of teams, correct me if I'm wrong on this, aren't a lot of teams waiting to see where the Hamilton thing finally settles?
We kept hearing that at winter meetings with Zach Greinke, that teams needed to, or I'm sorry, the agents needed to see how that played out. Teams needed to see how that played out before the pitching market kind of settled, and it still takes a couple of weeks for a market to settle after a big signing like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same thing in the outfield market, with Josh Hamilton kind of holding that process up for a lot of teams.
Let me ask you this: what was your take on Kansas City's move to get Shields? I was really advocating that we make a blockbuster offer to them. Once they got Escobar, though, that took Cabrera out of the scenario, because I knew the Rays are, even though they may want prospects, they want to win now. Your take on that whole scenario?
I mean, look, from our standpoint, as a competitor within the division, we certainly look at that, and they've improved their pitching, which I think was a clear need of theirs. So they've definitely improved their major league team. They're taking those steps to do it. We want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up to compete in the short term and also do it long term, make sure we can sustain that championship level to compete against a team like them.
Can you share that at least we made inquiries about Shields with Tampa?
We have talked about almost every player that has been on the market this year. So, yes, fans can be assured that we have talked about just about every guy out there.
Mike, I want to thank you so much for your honesty and input, and keep up the great work, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bruce.
Mike Chernoff, the Assistant General Manager of the Cleveland Indians.